Hey guys, welcome to Relax School. My name is Jyoti and I'm a CMA finalist. This is our third video on transportation, and in this video we are going to discuss about least cost method. So what did we discuss until now? So we have covered basic concepts. We have covered what is a balanced and unbalanced problem. We have covered northwest corner method. We have covered the procedure also. So our main objective is always to satisfy the supply and demand constraints while incurring the minimum transportation cost. Right, for this, what is the procedure? Whenever we encounter a transportation problem, the first thing we need to do is we need to check if it is a balanced problem or unbalanced problem. Later we apply any of the methods to obtain a basic feasible solution. Right? What is the third step? Later we will test it for optimality using Modi method. Where are we right now? We are in the process of finding the basic feasible solution. We have covered the northwest corner method. Now we are going to cover the least cost method in this video. Alright, let's see. Our next concept is concept number 5, which is least cost method. Now what are the steps? See, the first step is to find the least cost in a whole matrix. When we are given a transportation problem, it would look something like this, right? So we need to identify the least cost in the whole matrix. This is our first steps. Let's say in this case we have 2, 2, 2 here. This is the least cost that we have. Right? We need to identify the least cost, which is our first step. And the second step is, if there is a tie between the least cost, that means there is no single cell that has the least cost. That means there are multiple cells. There is tie between the least cost. Then how do you select a cell? Why we are selecting the cell? We need to select a single cell to make an allocation. What happened is, there is a tie between the least cost. Then how you are going to select one single cell? You'll select a cell which has maximum number of allocations. We will see about that in a moment when we are solving the problem. For now, just understand this is the steps. Okay. Now the third step is, if there is also a tie in the maximum allocations, that means in the process of finding a single cell, what happened? Now there are multiple cells even competing for the maximum allocations. Then how do we need to choose? We will choose arbitrarily. This basically means free will. You can choose whatever you want to choose. Up to you. Now using this whole process, you are trying to find one single cell, and in the selected cell you are trying to make an allocation, and this process repeats until you satisfy all the supply and demand constraints and obtain a basic feasible solution. What is a basic feasible solution? It has m plus n minus 1 number of allocations made. Right? M basically means number of rows and n basically means number of columns. So let's start the solution so that we will understand how least cost method works, right? So this is our illustration number 2 on the CMA Final study material, right? And the question is very simple. We have 3 sources, P1, P2 and P3, which is basically plant 1, plant 2 and plant 3. From the corresponding plants we have supply, and we have 4 retail shops, R1, R2, R3 and R4, from which we have demand. Right? The corresponding demand is also given for us. Now our job is to find a basic feasible solution using the least cost method. Right? Our question is, use the least cost method, find the transportation cost. The first thing is, we always need to check if the total supply is equal to total demand or not. Let's see here, 50 plus 75 plus 25 is 150. And 20 plus 20 plus 50 plus 60 is also 150. This is the balanced problem. Now we can proceed to solving the problem using any of the methods. In this case, least cost method. What did I say? The first step is to identify the minimum transportation cost, right? In the whole matrix, you need to find a cell which has least cost. Now let's see. Here we have R1 with the least cost of 2. We have R4 with the least cost of 2 and 2 again. Now, what we can say? We can simply say that there is a tie between the least cost. Why? Imagine there is in the whole matrix, there is only one place where there is 2. Which is, but the problem is there are multiple cells, which basically means there is a tie in the least cost. Right, whenever there is a tie in the least cost, you need to choose a cell where maximum allocation is possible, which is basically simple. If I choose this cell, the corresponding demand is 20, the corresponding supply is 75. We already know the least of the supply and demand is going to become a part of our allocation. The thing is very simple. R1 only needs 20 units. P2 is capable of supplying 75. Even though P2 wants to supply 75, R1 will be like, no, I only need 20 units. What will I do with the other units? Right, the maximum allocation possible from P2, right, to R1 is going to be the minimum of demand and supply. The corresponding demand is 20, supply is 75. So 20 units is possible. Now let's see in the tied cell. Let's take this, right, P2 and R4. Now if you see, for this cell, the corresponding demand and supply is 60 and 75. Now let's see what is the minimum of supply and demand. It is 60. So now the possible allocation in that cell is 60. Now let's take the other remaining one with the least cost. So now it has a demand of 60 and supply of 25. What is the minimum of supply and demand? It is going to be 25. Let me write that also. Alright. P3 to R4 is going to be 25 units. Now what they are trying to say is, for the cells which tied, look at the possible allocation and choose a cell where the maximum allocation is possible. This basically means we are selecting a cell which is P2 from R4 where maximum allocation is possible, which is also the least cost. Now we are selecting this one. Now we are selecting P2 to R4 cell where the maximum allocation is possible. Right. Now that we have selected this cell, the concept is very simple. The minimum of supply and demand, which is going to be 60, which we also calculated before. We are trying to allocate this. What is the meaning of this allocation? From P2 to R4, we are sending 60 units. So the demand of R4 is completely satisfied because 60 units is sent for him. And in his inventory, the P2 stock is being reduced because he sent 60 units to the customer. So now how many units he's left with? 75 minus 60, which is going to be 15. Now in the next table, I am going to completely eliminate R4. See, why am I doing this? R4 doesn't need anything anymore. He has completely satisfied his demand. Right, so I'm eliminating him so that our job would be less hectic. That is as simple as that. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to rewrite the whole table. Let's see. We have R1, R2, R3. I'm completely eliminating R4 because he's done with his demand. Now P1, P2, P3. Let's write the costs as well. Now we have the costs of 357, 258, 369. Right? This is basically the table that we have right now. Now what I will do, now I'll also write the supply and demand. So our supply is 50. Here we only have 15 units left. And from P3 it is 25. When it comes to demand, it is 20, 20, and 50. Now the same story repeats again. What is the story? We have to find a cell with the least cost and the whole matrix. So what are the cells with the least cost? So where do we have the least cost? Here we can identify a 2, right? So we only have single cell with the least cost. So I'll just select this cell and I'll see the corresponding demand and supply for the allocation to be made. See, here there is no tie, there is only one single cell, so I can just allocate right away, right? So between the corresponding 20 and 15, what is the least of it? 15, of course. So now I'm going to allocate 15 units in this cell, which basically means from P2 to R1 we are making an allocation of 15 units. So because of this supply of P2 is completely exhausted, and the corresponding demand for R1 need 20 units, we are only supplying him 15 units, so 20 minus 15, he's still left with a demand of 5 units. Now if you observe, what did we do before? So the demand of R4 is exhausted, so what did we do? We completely eliminated him in the next table. The same scenario, now what is happening? Now the supply of P2 is completely exhausted. Here there is 0 now. So in the next table I am completely eliminating P2. Why? He is not capable of supplying anymore. What is the point we are letting him into the next table? Imagine in the previous scenario, we let this into R4 column. We will write here 6, 2 and 2. Now if you look at the whole table, what is the least cost? Where do we find the least cost? Here we have a least cost, here we have a least cost, here we have a least cost, here we made an allocation, here we have another 2. We will simply select this cell also, and we will also see where the maximum allocation is possible. So it is unnecessary drama. If you are already confused, just eliminate this guy. It is fairly easy. That is what we really generally do also. But the problem is I'm completely not writing the table at all. That's the only thing. Now let's write the third table, right? Now I'll just write it here, okay? So we have R1, R2 and R3. We have P1. I'm not writing P2, so we have P3. Now what are the costs? The corresponding costs are 3, 5, 7. We have 3, 6, 9. This is eliminated, so 3, 6, 9 is from here. Now I'll just draw the box. So what is the corresponding supply and demand? We have 50 from P1, 25 from P3, and next we have the reduced 5 from R1, and next we have 20 and 50. Now the same old story repeats again. We will select a cell with the least cost here. So let's see what is the least cost that we have. So we have 3 here, 3 here, right? These are the least cost. So now this means there is a tie between the least cost. Now because there is a tie, we are going to go with the maximum allocations, right, where maximum allocation is possible. So let's see, I'll just write it down somewhere here, okay? So from P1 to R1, so if I selected this cell, the corresponding demand and supply is 5 and 50. What is the minimum of the supply and demand? 5. So 5 is the maximum allocation here. Let's see for P3 to R1. So if I selected this cell, the corresponding supply and demand is 5 and 25. So what is the least among them? 5 again. So I'll just write P3 to R1 is going to be 5 units again. Now as you can see, there is also a tie between the maximum allocations. Now what do we do? So whenever there is a tie for maximum allocations also, we have to choose arbitrarily. You can go with your own choice. It is completely alright, because it is not affecting our least cost, at least not in this step. So this is our choice. So now what do? I just want to go with this cell No reason, honestly. I just feel like 25 does seem like a number which doesn't have 0. So if I take out 5, it is going to be 20. There is really no reasons. You can just choose whatever you want to choose. I'm choosing this, that's it. So the corresponding demand and supply for the selected cell is 5 and 25. So now what I'm going to do, the list of supply and demand is going to become our allocation. Now 5 I'm allocating from P3 to R1, which basically is reducing the demand of R1 because we supplied him 5 units. Now from the corresponding supply we are reducing 5 units. 20 minus 5 is going to give us 20 units, right? Now in the next table what we are going to do, we are going to completely eliminate R1 because he doesn't need any units anymore. He is out of the game. We are not trying to supply any more units to R1. Now what we are left with is R2, R3, P1, P3. Now the corresponding costs are 5, 7, 6, 9. Now let's draw a box. Now what are the supply and demand? When it comes to supply, we have 50 and we have 20. When it comes to demand, we have 20 from R2 and 50 from R3. Now again the same old story. What is the least cost among the whole table? We have 5 right here, which is the least cost. We don't have any other cell competing for it. We only have a single cell, so we select the cell and start our allocation. So we will see the corresponding demand and supply. So it is 20 and 50. What is the minimum of supply and demand? It is 20. So we will allocate the 20 from P1 to R2. Now let's see. The demand of R2 is completely satisfied. 20 units are sent to him by P1. Because P1 sent him 20 units, we are going to reduce it. 50 minus 20 is going to be 30. Now if you look at it, this is completely satisfied, right? We don't need to draw other table. We will just do it right here. We will start the allocations again. So let's see what is the least cost among these two. See, R2 is out of the game now, right? We only have these two cells left. So let's see what is the least cost. So we have 7, which is the least cost. So we will allocate there as much as possible. Let's see, the corresponding supply is 30 and the corresponding demand is 50. Minimum of supply and demand is going to be 30. So this 30 is satisfied and we are reducing R3 with 30 units. So 50 minus 30 is going to be 20. Now let's see what we are left with. We only have single cell, which is 9 here, and if you see the corresponding demand and supply, it is 20 and 20 because it's a balanced problem. We have no issues, everything is going all right. So we will directly allocate 20 units from P3 to R3. Because of this allocation, what happened? The demand of R3 is satisfied, the supply of P3 is also satisfied. Let's draw one single table showing all the allocations, all right? I'll just copy this. Now let's see, this is our initial question, right? So now we completely satisfied all the supply and demand constraints. All of it is satisfied basically. So I'll write a single table showing all of the allocations from P2 to R4. We have allocated 60 units. And in the second table, what did we do? We allocated 15 units from P2 to R1. Now in the third table, we made one allocation from P3 to R1, 5. Next, in the last table, we make 3 allocations, P1 to R2, 20, P1 to R3, 30, P3 to R3, 20. So these are all our allocations using the least cost method. Now let's see if it is going to give us a basic feasible solution or not. So what is basic feasible solution? M plus n minus 1 number of allocations are made or not. M is number of rows and n is number of columns. Now let's see, we have 3 rows and 4 columns. Very simple. So 3 plus 4 minus 1. That means we need to make 6 allocations to call it a basic feasible solution. And we made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 number of allocations. So this is a basic feasible solution. This is our solution. Now we will write all the costs. Okay, what is the transportation cost that we incurred because of this? Let's see our transportation cost. So from P1 to R1 we supplied. From P1 to R2, P1 to R3, P2 to R1, P2 to R4, P3 to R1, P3 to R3. I hope I covered everything. Now let's see P1 to R2. The cost is 5. We supply 20 units plus P1 to R3 7 rupees 30 units. P2 to R1 2 rupees 15 units. P2 to R4 2 units 2 rupees 60 units. P3 to R1 3 rupees 5 units. P3 to R3 9 with 20 units. So these are basically our costs. Now let's take a calculator and 5 into 20, 7 3s 21, 15 2s 30, 6 2s 12, 120, 5 3s 15, 9 2s 18. So these are our costs. No, 100 plus 210 plus 30 plus 120 plus 15 plus 180. So our costs are 655. So using the least cost method, we have obtained a cost of 655. So this is the transportation cost that we got using the least cost method. See, the ideology is very simple. We need to find the least cost and allocate as much as possible there. We will do the steps over and over again. If there is a tie between the least cost, then we will choose the maximum allocation. If there is a tie in the maximum allocation also, we will choose arbitrarily and we will go on with our allocations. Right. With this, we are concluding this video. If you have any more doubts, you can comment down below. Right. In the next video, we will be talking about Vogel's approximation method along with optimality. For more such content, like, share and subscribe. And don't forget to comment your thoughts below.